David, it's great to have you here at the Art Gallery of Ballarat in your exhibition, Another Night on Earth.
Thank you.
Your exhibition consists of linocuts and woodcuts, which are from the last 20 years of your practice. Artist Lionel Lindsay explained of his practice with wood engraving. My interest in wood engraving lies entirely in liberating qualities contained by no other medium and striving for free expression by line. I wonder if we could start by talking about your relationship with Lionel Lindsay and why it is that wood engraving is one of your preferred mediums.
Okay, well, it's quite coincidental that I got into wood engraving and because I found out later that Lionel Lindsay was a wood engraver and then also found out that we were sort of distant cousins. So, I mean, maybe I think he is an incredible wood engraver and I have some of his in my house, and I like to think that, well, maybe I somehow distantly, even though it's very distant, inherited that sort of knack for anal wood engraving. I just love wood engraving because I like telling stories and I love the narrative. And so I really wanted to be a songwriter, but I couldn't write songs. And so when I discovered wood engraving, it was the closest medium I'd found to writing a song, because of its intimacy. It's small, and its history of illustrating books and newspapers. That was its original function.
Yeah, and of course with wood engraving, all of the images in the exhibition are black and white. And you mentioned that then it allows you to focus on the story and what's going on in the image.
Colour's just a distraction, really. It just detracts from the image and the story, I find. So the black and white's just more straight to the point. Yeah.
And on the subject of cartooning, there is quite a lot of humour in your work, but at first glance there might not always be, you might not always get it. Could you perhaps talk about how you do work humour into your work?
Well, I just find melancholy, I love melancholy and I love humour. So if you combine the two together, it's quite a powerful force. If it was just all melancholic and depressing, it would be just a real drag. But if you can, and that's why I like the sort of the forlorn, hopeless blokes in a way, because they're sort of sad, but also quite funny. Just these characters that don't quite sort of fit, or haven't never really got their shit together, or it's just something I like.
Are those blokes you?
Oh, no, not particularly. I hope not. Well, there's elements of me, but it's just a story. I've got to... When I did try, talking about songwriting, when I did try to do... I quit painting and I tried to do showbiz for a few years and failed miserably. And then when I got back into doing art and I started doing printmaking, then I discovered wood engraving. The good thing was that I had a story then. I had a subject. So it's, that narrative of the, failed ambition and disappointment and, just a delusion, all this yearning, all that sort of stuff. So I had a subject, which was really, that was half the battle won then. And then, so it's just sort of my shtick really, and that sympathy for the hopeless bloke or the loser, So there's elements of me, Also, I like to win. I'm very competitive. Yeah. So if I play table tennis, you're in for a grueling. I don't care whether you're, little or, I play to win.
Yeah. Well, I'm very competitive, but very bad at table tennis, so I won't join you in that.
Really.
On that subject matter of talking about blokes, I mean, we've had a chat about how a lot of the blokes in your works have just been dumped, it's women walking away from men, and human emotion is really important in your work as well, which has obviously taken on a completely different meaning in 2020. Can you perhaps talk about that side of your work, the examining human emotion?
Well, all my work is always a very common story of the guy sadly reminiscing about the time he had a girlfriend or a wife and had love. And I love, with music and songs, I love sad songs. And I mean, they're pretty much mostly about broken hearts, I guess. So I've always liked the idea of connecting with people and the community. I've always been a bit nervous or hesitant about connecting with people in reality, as in actually, talking and socialising. But I've always had that urge to connect with people. So I love the idea of making art that people relate to and love, and actually maybe feel emotional or get some message or feel some sadness or laughter. And I like art that is accessible, easy to understand, easy to relate to. I like, occasionally, believe it or not, I've had people tell me that they've actually had tears in their eyes or cried. So I mean, that's I find that hard to believe, but that's probably a pretty high compliment, I think. So I wasn't always sure whether that was possible in art. I know you can do it with songs, with sad songs, make you cry or feel sad. So if I can ever do that with my pictures, I'm pretty happy about that. So I just like, the idea of compassion and empathy for people, or sad people, or people that have failed, and all, that sort of thing. I like. So.
And the figure in Holding On is one that people seem to have really. The figure in Holding On is one that resonates with people.
It has, and I'm very happy about that, because I was hoping that it wasn't just going to think people a greenie or whatever, just a greenie issue. I'm happy for it to be a greenie issue, but I wanted it to be an issue that could mean lots of things to lots of people, like holding on to the old farm, or holding on to the old days, or holding on to your sanity, or holding on, it's just, I wanted it to be a generalised theme, and that's often the key to a successful image, I find, if it can sort of mean something to a lot of different people, and mean different things to different people. So I'm happy about that, and how people love that image so much.
And that on the relationship with the land, then landscape plays a huge role in your work too.
That's like the setting, or the theatre setting for the actors in the play. In a way, I feel I grew up as a principal teacher's son in the Wimmera in Matoa in my primary school years. Little flat, small little town, and very strong memories of sitting on the roof of the house, looking out, or up a tree, and that sort of melancholy feeling of, on a Saturday afternoon and there's no one there. Everyone's just the streets are empty, and so I just love that theme of. And speaking of songwriters, at a very young age, as a child in high school, I got introduced to Tom Waits, the American music singer-songwriter, and he was going through a phase of that rural sort of setting and that sort of alienation, and I really picked up on that as well, and so there was a similar connection there with his music. That sort of country misfit that wants to leave but also wants to stay. Yeah. You want to succeed, but you're scared of success, and I often have a figure called Mr. Vertigo, who's flying through the sky. You want to fly, but you're scared of heights, or you want to succeed, but you're scared of success. So
that's almost your competitive nature coming back in. You're competitive, but then you're perhaps tentative as well.
Yeah, in some things, I guess, but not when it comes to table tennis.
And perhaps we could talk about a work that the Art Gallery of Ballarat have recently acquired for our collection, which you consider one of your masterpieces. Hopefully there's more of those to come. Waiting for Rain.
Well, it's funny because that one doesn't have any narrative or any figures in it as such. It's not an obvious narrative, but I was just pleased with the actual visual, impact of it, and because I didn't know what I was doing, and I've never been able to really replicate that sort of, again, that style of picture. But I did that from years of doing little wood engravings, and I had a bit of success in China with this new printmaking base there, and I won one of their first biennales, international print biennales, and I went there and did a few residencies and spent a bit of time there. And I was looking at these, lot of guys, a lot of the artists and women doing these big woodcuts on plywood. It's sort of landscapes too that was sort of, you know, portrait format, which is a very Asian format, I think. And I just thought I could give that a go. So then when I got home, I just thought I'd do it on lino, and I just did it on one panel, and I'd put another panel of lino next to that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just sort of, I had some reference pictures and things, but I just sort of organically I started at a certain point and just sort of organically grew. And so that was the first big lino cut I did, and that was the last big lino cut I did. They were very, very tedious to do, and very physically demanding, and yeah.
And people are fascinated in the process of such highly detailed work, and I know that your the works behind us has had a huge. You put a video up of you carving that work, and it's had a huge number of views on YouTube, which people can have a look at. Yeah. But also in terms of preparatory sketches and that side of things, do you work straight onto the piece of wood or lino? Or?
I do, and people find it very strange because I don't draw it all up first, which is a bit risky with lino cuts, because if you cut something that's not right, or you can't put it back. But I kind of like that. At least it added some sense of excitement to an otherwise really tedious process. Just seeing how it would grow. So I'd paint the whole lino black, and I'd stick it onto a piece of wood, so it was a big board. I could lean it up against the wall to look at. And then I think I started down near the bottom of that tree, and then just wound my way around it as it grew over, I think, 4 months that took. Yeah. So I had photographs, I had drawings, I had a little wood engraving study I did that actually had a figure in the first one, but I thought the big scale, once you go to a big scale, it makes a whole different, there's a difference. It's not as, I thought it worked better without the figure. And then...
But the trees themselves have become the figures.
Yeah, that's right. I see the
work.
Trees as the figures, and they're just sort of different trees from different places, and it just sort of creates it as I go along. And now I'm working on lino cuts where I'm just going off a little wood engraving I did, and then no photographs, which makes for a very different experience and a different picture. So yeah, I hope they work well, because they're a bit more fun to do and a little less tedious.
Yeah.
And a bit more graphic in a way. So, yeah, they're a bit hard on the...
I imagine it would take a
joints.
Physical toll on your body after a while.
On your hands, elbows, neck, back, shoulders, head, brain, eyes.
Yeah.
Sanity.
Family. Yeah. Well, hopefully putting this exhibition together with us hasn't been too much of a toll on you. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you and exhibit your work here, and now to have one of your really large works as part of our collection. So thank you for joining me today, David.
Thank you for having me.